we're not going to tolerate it. So it looks like a conflict is around the corner. Well, to the North Koreans, that conflict, shutting down your power grid from whatever, Burlington, Vermont, to New Jersey, that's part of the conflict. And then shutting down power from hydroelectric dams in Yosemite to Los Angeles, that's part of the conflict. And then overriding floodgates, that's part of the conflict. And are we prepared for this? Well, no, we're not. Of course we're not. There's more Chinese Ministry for State Security agents, and I say this, ad nauseum here in Southern California. There's more Chinese Ministry for State Security, secret agents. There's more Chinese agents in Southern California than FBI agents. There's also, by the way, more Russian assets in Southern California than FBI. And there's probably, at this point, more people working in conjunction with the North Korean government than the FBI. What about New York? The New York field office of the FBI is huge because New York's an important place. Well, you know who else is there? The Chinese are there, the Russians are there, and the North Koreans are there. And so internet security is something that is very important to me. And it was funny because I went through a phase where I thought that I was completely secure, that the apps that I was using, the apps that I had downloaded were securing me and keeping my communications secure. They're not. They're just not. So if you think, well, that idiot filling in for Buck Sexton doesn't know what he's talking about, because I have Signal, and that's like super duper encrypted and the whole thing. You know what? I'm the one playing it safe. You're being reckless by assuming that thing is secure. The only thing that I will tell people to download and use is what's called a VPN, a virtual private network. What it is it's a way for you to mask your IP address so that any malware, anyone looking at who's trying to crack into your secure apps, they can't find your original IP address. And there's a couple, and I'll tweet out the names. I'm not endorsing anyone. I'm not going to name them. But if you do that one thing, if you mask, and here's what you can do. On the one that I use, a map of the world comes up, and I can either, if I turn it on, what it will do is it will relocate my IP address to Italy or Estonia or Latvia or Lithuania or Mexico or whatever. So it looks like I'm posting from Central Europe or Egypt or whatever. I do use that for every once in a while. And there's a bunch of apps that will do that for you. But in 2017, as we come to an end of 2017, I am here to tell you, if you think that there is a way for you to securely communicate with somebody over the interwebs, stop it. You know what the new think is? Everything you put on your phone through any app can be viewed by the U.S. government or any other government. And I look at her communications with people on Minecraft, because she's 8 years old, and she's writing her own game in Minecraft. Because I told her, we're sitting there looking at it one day, and I said, "You're asking me for money to play on this game when you should be writing your own game and telling your friends in third grade to come to your server and pay you money." And her eyes just went bing. And I told her, I said, "Listen, you live in a world that I didn't grow up in, but I ain't stupid. My dad used to watch 2 seconds of Scooby-Doo and tell me it was rotting my brain. He didn't understand the underlying brilliance of Scooby-Doo. Because my dad didn't grow up with cartoons. I didn't grow up with the internet, but I am an intense internet user. I'm an intense gamer, and I'm an intense communicator on the Twitter machine. And I have told her, here is how life works. Bad people are on the other end of that thing. Bad people are in Minecraft. They will talk to you as if they're 8-year-old girls, but you know what they are? They're 39-year-old men. They're hairy men in their underwear living in their mom's basement in Lodgegrass, Montana. And they want to be your friend. And they want to ask you for pictures of yourself. And I said, if you ever have anyone ever ask you for that, tell me immediately. Because I will take over. And I will start typing to them as if I'm you. And I will find out where they are. and then they will disappear, and they will wind up a headless torso in the desert. In my fantasy world, of course, I would never actually do that. So anyway, that's the world that you're in 2017. And like I say, the entire point of this is you underestimate North Korea at your peril. And you underestimate the online caliphate of ISIS at your peril. You have to take this stuff seriously because the internet allows people to punch way above their weight. There's no 10 guys in the North Korean Army's Unit 180 in Pyongyang have no business shutting down the entire grid for 19 million people in Southern California. But you know what? They can do it. And unfortunately, at this end of the internet, at Con Edison in New York, or SoCal Edison in Southern California, the closest thing to hardening their internet infrastructure is saying, let's hope that doesn't happen, which violates two of the most basic rules of war. Number one, the enemy gets a vote. No matter what you planned, the enemy gets a vote. And number two, hope is not a plan. And unfortunately, in this country, and you're seeing it with Bitcoin, as Bitcoin just gets more valuable, there's more of an incentive for hackers to steal your lunch. And hope is not a plan. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. We'll talk about North Korea and this bomb in Russia and the status of terrorism around the world and whether or not we're talking about an imminent war in North Korea. It's Bryan filling in for Buck Sexton here on America Now.
Celebrate the new year on a new floor at Lumber Liquidators year-end flooring clearance sale. Save big on over 200 floors. Get the lowest price of the year on our thickest water-resistant laminate and one-look waterproof flooring. Get pre-finished hardwood up to 35% off, bamboo up to 33% off, and take an extra 15% off clearance in-store. Get more from 49 cents while supplies last. Plus professional installation and special financing. Don't wait. Get to your local Lumber Liquidators today.
The Germans have encircled our forces in Dunkirk.
The nation's top critics are hailing Darkest Hour.
We must get our boys off those beaches.
The Wall Street Journal raves Darkest Hour inspires and entertains.
One bond unites us all to rescue mankind.
It's a portrait of leadership at its most brilliant.
We shall fight on.
And now it's a Critics' Choice nominee for Best Picture of the Year.
We shall never surrender.
Darkest Hour, rated PG-13, may be inappropriate for children under 13. Now playing in theaters everywhere. Message and data rates may apply.
If you're considering going back to school, ask yourself the following questions. Do you need the flexibility to take classes on your schedule? Do you have college credits you need transferred? Do you want to earn a quality degree from a world-renowned university? If you answered yes to any of these questions, Arizona State University is the perfect school for you. Arizona State University offers over 150 highly ranked degree programs 100% online. You'll learn the same degree as you would on campus from wherever you are on your schedule. Plus, ASU Online accepts most transfer credits. For information, text STUDY to 35517. Learn for yourself why the Wall Street Journal ranks ASU 5th in the nation for producing the best qualified graduates and why 87% of ASU grads are recruited within 90 days of graduation. Learn to grow, learn to succeed, and learn to thrive at Arizona State University. To learn more about ASU online degrees, text STUDY to 35517. That's STUDY to 35517.
Consumer confidence is slipping. The Conference Board says its confidence index dipped this month from a 17-year high reached in November. It was almost 129, now it's 122. A much bigger drop than most economists predicted. Most of the decrease was about jobs and business prospects 6 months from now. The part of the index measuring current conditions actually improved slightly. Pending home sales are up and most economists expect it down. The National Association of Realtors Index of signed contracts to buy soon ticked up 0.2% from October to November, and most economists predicted a 0.4 decline. And compared to last November, pending home sales are up 0.8. They were especially strong in the South, but slow in the West. Did you get what you really need for Christmas, or is it just adding to the clutter in your life?
We're really drowning in stuff. It's getting to be more than a problem.
That's where people like Tracy McCubbin come in. She's founder and CEO of Declutterfly, and says the holidays are a perfect time to take stock and get rid of household clutter. beginning with old Christmas decorations.
There's been a couple Christmases that this stuff hasn't been put out to decorate. Purge it. And look, if those string of lights don't work, but you think that you're going to fix them and you haven't, you're not going to. Let it go.
She says for the stuff that's still useful, keep charities in mind.
NBC's Chris Clackham reporting another option if you don't want to join this week's crowds returning unwanted gifts or can't for lack of a receipt or even knowing where it was purchased, consider selling it on eBay or similar sites. And now is a good time to shop for a new car. Consumer Reports says buyers have more bargaining power as dealers try to clear showrooms and hit targets before the new year. Consumer Reports analysts looked through national incentives and found many models with 12% or more projected savings off the original window sticker price. But savvy negotiators could save even more depending on local supply and demand. Not all dealers everywhere will be equally flexible. Consumer and Business News, Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
Welcome back to America Now. Bryan filling in for Buck Sexton on vacation. I'll be back next week for Tuesday and Wednesday again. And I will, coming up, I was bad-mouthing California earlier in the last hour, telling you about some new laws that are coming into effect on January 1st where the state of California is actively interfering with federal enforcement of immigration law. And also begging for money for wildfire relief and the rest. And I actually left off some of the other laws that are coming into effect about active interference with federal authorities. So I'll tell you about that coming up, because we can't let the show complete without you really completely being in absolute contempt for the state of California. Also, Daily Caller with this story about blue states hemorrhaging people. And it's funny because Daily Caller, Ben Shapiro's thing, it says Democrat-leaning. 3 Democrat-leaning states. Well, we're talking about Illinois, New York, and California. I'm sorry, you misspelled dominated. 3 Democrat-leaning states hemorrhaged hundreds of thousands of people in 2016 and 17. As crime, high taxes, and in some cases, crummy weather had residents seeking greener pastures elsewhere. The California to Texas pipeline is pretty well developed. That ever since the crash of 2008, counties and cities in Texas have been advertising on TV and radio in California to come move there. Like Houston has been a major one, and San Antonio and Bexar County of San Antonio have been major advertisers to get people to leave California, and it's worked. I don't know about New York or Illinois, but New York's domestic out-migration during the 2016 to 17 time period was most pronounced. It was about the same as it was in the same time, 2015 to 16. Since 2010, the state of New York's outflow of just over 1 million residents has exceeded that of every other state, both in absolute terms and as a share of population. And this is according to the free market think tank Empire Center. And then Florida, of course, is having a population boom. So my sense of it would be if you're taxed up to here, and you've had it with New York, then you would stay on the East Coast and move to Florida. If you're in California, you go east and go to Texas. That's my gut feeling of it. And that I know that we tunneled out of California. We left in 2010 before we came back. But in 2010, things were crazy. We left, and we went back to the state of Washington. And then a better offer came back, and we moved back to L.A., and we frankly regret it. Why are people leaving New York? And in the case of New York, birth in New York overcomes the out-migration. But my gut feeling is that the people who are pulling up stakes and leaving New York and leaving California and leaving Illinois are people that are leaving for economic reasons. And they're probably people who earned a living and are now leaving. So they're taking their tax revenue and they're moving the heck out. You know, keep in mind, in the big picture, only about 51% of Americans pay federal income tax. In California, New York, and Illinois, all state tax states, north of 50%, about 55% of residents pay state taxes. And so, since, a huge majority are not paying them, the loss of a large amount of people who pay state taxes is pretty significant. And so if New York loses 190,000 people, I don't think they're leaving because they're poor. I think they're leaving because they want to keep more of their money. So them and their tax money leave New York, and they move to a tax-free state like Florida. And you give yourself an immediate $30,000 raise. And by the way, if you don't know this, if listeners in New York or the Northeast, if you don't know this, New York advertises pretty heavily on national cable stations. New York portrays itself as this great, incubator for innovation, and you get all these tax breaks and all this stuff. That's what New York is telling the rest of the country. I don't know if California does this as well, besides tourism. If you are contemplating moving to California, don't. Stop packing. Unless you live in somewhere where you're taxed more, and that's only Hawaii. So there's other reasons to move to Hawaii. But anyway, so that's what's happening. There is a resettling of the foundation. And I know that for the state of California, if rich people leave, the state collapses, because that's who pays the state income taxes. New York, same deal. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. I'll tell you about North Korea and what a conflict might look like, because it might break out in the next 5 minutes or maybe the next 5 months. We'll talk about it when we come back. Bryan is filling in for Buck Sexton. You've got America.
USA Radio News with Ron Taylor.
An Arctic blast continues to control the Dakotas, into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and across the northeastern part of the country.
Meteorologist Rob St. Pierre says expect a very cold New Year's Eve as Arctic air dives through the United States this week.
High temperatures possibly no better than the mid-teens below zero in the Dakotas, and we could even be looking at highs in some places in central and northern New England early next week, below zero.
President Trump is talking about his accomplishments during his first year in office. Speaking at a fire station in Florida, he claimed he broke a record for passing legislation. The president also took credit for slashing regulations, repealing the Obamacare individual mandate, and noted the recently passed tax cut plan. Former President Obama is reflecting on his time in the White House. In a BBC interview with Britain's Prince Harry, Obama said he felt an overall sense of serenity when leaving office. You're listening to USA Radio News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and like all of you out there, I had problems sleeping. Pillows would go flat, I would flip-flop all night long, I would wake up with a sore neck, maybe a headache, or feel like I needed a nap even though I slept 8 hours. When I invented MyPillow, I wanted it to where you can move the patented fill to give you the exact support you need as an individual, regardless of sleep position. MyPillow will get you into that deep sleep faster, and you will stay there longer. It's not about how much time we spend in bed. It's about how much of that quality sleep we get. I do all of my own manufacturing right here in the United States. I have a 10-year warranty. You can wash and dry MyPillow, and I give you a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose.
By using promo code USA, Mike will give you 50% off of 2 MyPillow premium pillows and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Call 800-951-8175 and give the promo code USA, or go to MyPillow.com and enter the promo code USA to get this unbelievable offer.
Fox Sports trending now.
New York Giants defensive back Eli Apple was suspended for Sunday's finale. The Rams will rest Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, Aaron Donald, and others on Sunday. Kansas City will start rookie quarterback Patrick Mahomes this weekend. LA Charger running back Melvin Gordon with his bad ankle is optimistic about playing this weekend, according to NFL Network. Green Bay wide receiver Jordy Nelson is likely out with a bad shoulder, and wide receiver Devontae Adams is still in concussion protocol. Tennessee running back DeMarco Murray missed practice due to injury today. Online car shopping can be confusing. Not anymore with True Price from TrueCar. Now you can know the exact price you'll pay for your next car. So visit TrueCar to enjoy a more confident car buying experience. 8 minutes to go in the bowl game at Yankee Stadium. Boston College is tied Iowa 20 apiece. Florida State beat Southern Miss today 42-13. I'm Steve DeSager.
Ready? It's that time. Countdown time. Relive the year in music with iHeartRadio. Tap the playlist tab and check out the top 100 songs of the year. Playlist of the top 100 songs of the year for rock, pop, country, and more. All the music you need to remember 2017 and get you set for 2018. Right in your pocket. On the free iHeartRadio app. All your favorite music. All your favorite stations. All free.
iHeartRadio. Austin, never must drink, disgusting.
Eminem's Revival is number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart. Revival is his 8th straight number 1, making him the first act to get a top consecutive chart entry. Israel's ambassador to New Zealand wants to meet with pop star Lorde over the show that she's canceled in Tel Aviv. The New Zealander canceled the show after activists had asked her to stay away from Israel to protest the treatment of Palestinians. The ambassador posted an open letter today on the Facebook page of the Embassy of Israel asking for her to meet. Pearl Jam's fans are celebrating the release of the 2017 edition of the band's annual Fan Club Christmas single. This year's single includes a soundtrack version of Alive. The track was recorded before the Pearl Jam Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction performance on April 7th. So guess what the First Lady's favorite show is?
How to Get Away with Murder.
The New York Times says Melania Trump's a fan of the Thursday night lineup on ABC, and that's her favorite show. The report says the First Lady also likes tuning into Empire on Fox. And the NFL says it won't have a primetime game this Sunday night. Instead, it's scheduling all its games for the afternoon. It's the first time in 40 years the NFL regular season won't have a primetime Sunday broadcast. One league official said canceling the New Year's Eve game was the best thing to do from a fan perspective. That's entertainment. Sharon Reed, NBC News Radio.
He's holding the line for America. Buck Sexton is back.
Hey, welcome back to America Now. Bryan sits filling in for Buck Sexton. I'll be back on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. And then Buck's vacation will be over. So, as Secretary of Defense Mattis said, the war clouds are gathering over the Korean Peninsula. And part of this might be psyops on his part, might be disinformation to get a reaction out of the North Koreans, or more likely out of the Chinese. Because a lot of times, and this is lost in the American media, many times, if Trump is tweeting about North Korea, or Chief of Staff Kelly, or more likely Mattis, or Secretary Tillerson are talking about North Korea, their audience is China. The reality is we know the North Koreans aren't listening. And that and by the way, if you caught them saying that the latest UN sanctions are an act of war, that's whatever. You know, we're desensitized to it. Everything is an act of war to them. They're shut out of the World Cup. It's an act of war. They're not going to be part of the Winter Olympics. That's an act of war. You know, they went to 11 20 years ago. And you can't stay at 11. And so when you hear the United States or the Secretary of Defense quoted as saying war clouds are gathering, that's the part that we want the Chinese to listen to. So in the big picture, the Chinese stance on North Korea is, what's the big deal? You know, if you don't do nothing, they're not going to do nothing. If you allow them to have that nuclear weapon, they're probably not going to use it first, because if they do, they'll be done. So why can't you deal with that? Well, our problem is that the missile defense, as I talked about this yesterday, the ground-based missile defense is nowhere near effective enough to actually give us a guarantee that a North Korean nuclear missile cannot hit the United States. And in case you forgot, Guam is still the United States. So is Hawaii, most of it, and Alaska.
and we just cannot play the arithmetic. We can't win the arithmetic. Is that the North Koreans know that their advantage would be to overwhelm the system with 20 or 30 dummies and then fire an actual nuclear-armed missile. I mean, it's really basic. You don't have to be a strategist. You don't have to be Clausewitz or Sun Tzu to figure this out. And until we can guarantee that our ground-based missile defense, mid-course defense system can give us a 100% guarantee, we have to assume that North Korea is a country that has no problem committing suicide, because they've stated as much, that they have said they're going to use the missile to rain fire upon us. They haven't said, don't make us do this. They've said we're going to. So I, for one, am a big fan of taking people at their word. This should scare the crap out of the Chinese. And you know what? It has. The Chinese have actually reorganized their army. The People's Liberation Army used to have two separate commands along the North Korean border. They've consolidated that into a single command, and they've grandfathered all the units into a single command, because they have figured out, they war gamed this out, and they said, if the Americans start a war with North Korea, what's the worst case scenario for us? The worst case scenario for us is that the regime collapses and these 29 million zombies walk north into China. Or the North Koreans go crazy and attack us as well, or whatever. So they realizing that they have to stem the bleeding in the worst case scenario, they've reorganized their army along the North Korean border, which is huge. Their North Korean border is hundreds of miles long. Thing two, a memo that was leaked out of provincial governments in China indicates that Beijing has told these two provinces that border North Korea to begin construction of refugee camps that can house up to 500,000 people each, and to build several of them. Because the Chinese are not going to allow North Korean refugees to just run around China. They're going to be gathered up, they're going to be put in camps. Because here's how the aftermath of a collapsed North Korea looks. It's not the United States occupying it. It's not U.S. soldiers on the ground in Pyongyang. It's probably the Chinese making some phone calls to one of those grim-faced field marshals who are on the left and right of Kim Jong-un and backing them and saying, you know what, declare yourself the leader. We roll into your country. We back you. You reestablish a new government on the model that we dictate. Because China does not want a reunified Korea. They don't want a gigantic Republic of Korea or People's Republic of Korea. They want two Koreas. They would prefer a separate Korea that makes a little more money and that actually you can trade for things that you actually want. And they don't like Kim Jong-un either. But they don't like the chaos that would ensue in the aftermath of a collapsed regime. And so the American scenario that's being bandied about, the bloody nose strike, the 5 or 6 day strikes based out of Guam, based out of even Alaska, and possibly the American air base in South Korea, they're intended to make the point that this is us doing it, not South Korea, not Japan. This is us doing it. We're destroying the progress you made in missile manufacturing and nuclear research. We're destroying all these facilities that we know do nothing but make nuclear bombs or missiles. And if you retaliate, you're going to lose your regime. The Chinese are looking at that saying, yeah, there's a big assumption there. The big assumption is that the North Koreans would actually learn the lesson you think you're sending, would actually hear the message you're sending, and that they would not retaliate on South Korea. And that's not in their DNA, apparently, what they're saying. This is another thing that's not spoken about in the American media, is that the North Korean army is huge, but in modern terms, besides the number of people, it's probably ineffective against modern firepower, except that no matter what, there's something to be said for a huge amount of guys. Because in June of 1950, they had more guys than the South Koreans did. And they walked, with 3 weeks of rice, they walked to the south end of the peninsula and very nearly overran South Korea. So in 2017, what's different? Well, not a heck of a lot, except now they have AK-47s instead of bolt-action rifles. But they still rely on massed formations of infantry. Would they actually invade South Korea? Because that's a part of the North Korean math there, is they have to figure out, well, what's the American trigger for full-on war with us? If we have successfully decoyed our missile factories and nuclear bomb R&D places and all that, and they destroy 50% of our capacity to build nuclear bombs, we can rebuild it in 10 years. But what's their trigger for full-on war with us, and are they capable of it? Well, our trigger is probably, will one North Korean soldier set foot in South Korea? And if they do, it's on. And I mean 4 divisions of the U.S. Army, a dozen regiments of the U.S. Marine Corps, a year-long campaign of a really ugly war. And at the end of it, the Kim crime dynasty is done. The religious cult called North Korea is over. And that's if they don't hear the message that we're sending. And so those are the stakes. That's how that looks. It would be a really ugly war. It's a nightmare. A war in North Korea is a nightmare. Losing such a war is a bigger nightmare, though. Because imagine, if you will, the 7th largest economy on earth, the South Korean economy. If the North Koreans call our bluff and say, okay, you bombed our nuclear facilities and our missile facilities, guess what? We still have 4 million men. And we may not have the quality of your weapons, but we're about to teach you that quantity has a quality all of its own. And it goes a little something like this. Then 2 weeks later, the 7th largest economy on earth is gone. LG is gone. Samsung is gone. Hyundai is gone. Kia is gone. All the other hundreds of subcontractors that you've never heard of that make the computers that you're using and the cell phones in your hand, those are all gone. Not only are they gone, but the wealth of the companies are gone. And there's a vacuum in the world economy. So this is important stuff. That South Korea cannot lose that war. And if we initiate something, we have to be prepared to defend South Korea. Because the North Koreans know all this. And you know what? So do the Chinese. The number 1 trading partner of South Korea is China. Chinese middle class and wealthy people fly to South Korea every single weekend and drop millions of dollars there. The Chinese don't want to see North Korea overrun South Korea. The Chinese would lose billions. And they're not about losing billions. Not at all. So I don't have a prediction. I'm just telling you that's where we are on December 27, 2017. When we come back, hopefully I've sowed enough contempt in your minds that you should loathe the state of California. But I forgot to tell you what else the state of California is making law on January 1st. You talk about a state in open rebellion with the federal government. I have undersold to you how much California is going to interfere with federal immigration law. I'll tell you more when we come back right after this. Bryan Suits filling in for Buck Sexton. You've got America Now.
I believe in you. Just 4 simple words, but to a child in need, they mean the world. I believe in you means you have potential. You are special. You matter. When you become a child sponsor with Save the Children, you're saying, I believe in you. You are smart. You're capable. You will overcome obstacles that most can't imagine. Your sponsorship says to a child, I believe that you deserve a successful start to life and a solid foundation to build upon. I believe you're worthy of good nutrition, quality health care, and the opportunity that education unlocks. Becoming a Save the Children sponsor sends a powerful message of support. It says, I am here for you, to lift you up, to cheer you on, and to celebrate your success. Because when you believe in a child, you empower them to believe in themselves. I believe in you. Just 4 simple words that can bring hope, that can change a life. Visit sponsor.savethechildren.org today and tell a child in need, I believe in you.
Message and data rates may apply.
What I'm going to tell you in the next 60 seconds could change your life. A college degree is more than a piece of paper or entry on your resume. A degree is an all-access pass to your future and a daily reminder of what you can accomplish. If you're thinking about going back to school but can't disrupt your life, consider Arizona State University. ASU Online offers the same high-quality education, world-renowned faculty, dedicated student support, and exceptional learning resources, all 100% online. You'll earn the same respected ASU degree as on-campus students and access a global network of over 400,000 alumni. Learn why ASU is ranked top 5 nationally for producing the best qualified graduates. Text STUDY to 37913. ASU Online offers over 150 degrees online, from education to healthcare, engineering, and more. Learn more about ASU Online. Text STUDY to 37913. That's STUDY to 37913.
Checking out the movies this weekend? Here's your box office preview.
New this week is All the Money in the World from director Ridley Scott. Based on a 1995 book, this 70s-set crime thriller tells the true-life story of the kidnapping of 16-year-old oil heir J. Paul Getty III and his grandfather's refusal to pay the ransom. The boy's mother and Getty's senior advisor team up to try and save the younger Getty from the escalating brutality of the kidnappers. Michelle Williams, Christopher Plummer, Mark Wahlberg, and Charlie Plummer star. Out in limited release is the latest from writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson, Phantom Thread. Set in London's fashion world in the 1950s, Daniel Day-Lewis plays a high-powered stylist to the royal family and other socialites who meets a special woman who both disrupts and enriches his life. This historical drama also stars Leslie Manville, Vicky Krieps, and Richard Graham. Still in theaters are Star Wars The Last Jedi, Pitch Perfect 3, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, Coco, and Ferdinand. Plus father figures, Downsizing, Wonder, The Greatest Showman, and Lady Bird. And that's your weekend box office preview on iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio goes one-on-one with Neil Sean to ask about Journey's music being featured in the final episode of The Sopranos.
I did follow The Sopranos, and I watched it when I wasn't working. And I remember getting an email months prior to the last episode. And I believe it was from the director, and he was, basically saying, hey, we're talking about using Don't Stop Believing in the final episode of Sopranos. And I went, oh, cool, that's cool. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, it's cool too. And I wasn't glued to the TV. I was actually on the internet, and my phone just started blowing up. People were like, dude, did you see that? And I was like, what? And it was just like I got so many calls one after another. Got to see the episode, the next day, and I was like, wow, this is just amazing.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more Neil Sean and all your favorite artists.
America Now. Buck Sexton is on the vacation. And Bryan is filling in one last time. And I'll be back next Tuesday and Wednesday in a new year for 2018. Last hour, if you were along, I was telling you about how the state of California interferes with federal immigration law in passive ways. And one of them was for a long time, like for instance in San Francisco, where Kate Steinle was killed. It was literally San Francisco Sheriff's Department, San Francisco County's policy to not call ICE if an illegal alien was getting out of jail. And then even if ICE called and put what's called an immigration hold on somebody, was to not honor it. And that's not passive, that's active. But lots and lots and lots of passive ways for years of interfering with the federal government's authority to enforce immigration law. But on January 1st, just days from now, the following things will become state law in the state of California. I told you about sanctuary state. Senate Bill 54 restricts local law enforcement agencies from communicating with federal immigration authorities about people in custody, except those previously convicted of felonies in the past 15 years. So if you did a felony 16 years ago and you weren't deported, the state is not going to call ICE. But bottom line, if you're in for a misdemeanor, and also keep in mind, convicted of felonies, there's two things, and this is often lost when the mass media has to cover stories like this. There's what you were arrested for, and there's what you were convicted for. And oftentimes, that gap is the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor. Okay, so I talked ad nauseum last hour, at least I was sick of me, about that one particular law. There's three more. Senate Bill 29, Immigration Detention Centers. So starting January 1st, this prohibits new contracts between local governments and corporations that run immigration detention centers. So there are private prisons. You know this. If you're in Oklahoma, Texas, there's private corporations that run prisons. And, of course, they do them cheaper, more efficiently than any state. And no state is more inefficient than California. We have a death row with 720 people on it. Good Lord. If you whacked one a day, it would still take 2 years. But anywho, there are private companies that do immigration detention. And the federal government does exactly what your state probably does. Maybe your county does it. Maybe your city does it. And that's contract out incarceratory services. Well, no. In the state of California, a local municipality can't do that anymore. For if a company does immigration detention and they also do state detention or county detention, you can't sign a contract with them. Here's a great one. Assembly Bill 450, Worksite Immigration Enforcement, prohibits employers from providing federal immigration agents access to non-public areas of a worksite unless they have a judicial warrant. Also prohibits employers from providing employee records to immigration agents unless there is a subpoena or judicial warrant. Now, the deal is there was a big kerfuffle, remember, when ICE agents were patrolling hallways of courthouses in Texas and California because they were just trolling. I mean, it was like catching salmon. So you go where the illegal aliens are. And they have every right in the world to be in a county courthouse. But some municipalities and counties have banned them in California. Here's a great one. Student immigration status prohibits public schools, including community colleges, California State University, and University of California campuses, or campi, from collecting information about student citizenship or immigration status and that of their families. That's just collecting information, like census information. So here's the next step, by the way, is California blocking the U.S. Census. There's already a giant myth among illegal aliens that the census takers are actually marking them, or whatever. And by the way, would it surprise you to find out that the chancellor of the University of California system is Janet Napolitano? But anywho, so these things that I just described to you, you got to get a warrant to come into a non-public area of a work site. So this absolutely contradicts probable cause, because ICE agents can have probable cause to suspect that your meat packing company is 70% illegal alien. But they can't act on that now without getting a warrant. And you know what? I am a fan of law enforcement getting a warrant. I am a fan of you can knock and you can search right after you hand me a warrant. I'm a big fan of that. That's how free people work. That's how freedom works, is that we're supposed to have more rights than law enforcement or the government, and that they're supposed to have a writ or a warrant for us. And that's great. But we're conflating things when we're extending those rights and prohibiting the federal government from enforcing immigration law. And yes, I understand. If you set foot in the United States, and that includes Guam and Saipan, you have every constitutional right that an American citizen has. I get that. But at some point, the federal government does actually get to enforce immigration law. Like, that is one of their gigs. And guarding the border. That's not California's gig. So that's what California is doing on January 1st. Actively, not passively, actively interfering with the enforcement of immigration law. Oh, by the way, California is also begging for money, for emergency money after these wildfires. California wants it both ways. Alrighty, I don't know who's filling in tomorrow, but I'm sure they're awesome and you should listen. I'll be back on January 2nd and 3rd, next Tuesday and Wednesday, filling in for Buck. So thanks to Tyrone, thanks to the entire staff. I'll see you next week, right here at America Now with Buck Sexton, Bryan Suits filling in at Dark Secret Place on the tweeter machine. This is America Now.
Message and data rates may apply.
If you're considering going back to school, ask yourself the following questions. Do you need the flexibility to take classes on your schedule? Do you have college credits you need transferred? Do you want to earn a quality degree from a world-renowned university? If you answered yes to any of these questions, Arizona State University is the perfect school for you. Arizona State University offers over 150 highly ranked degree programs 100% online. You'll learn the same degree as you would on campus from wherever you are on your schedule. Plus, ASU Online accepts most transfer credits. For information, text STUDY to 35517. Learn for yourself why the Wall Street Journal ranks ASU 5th in the nation for producing the best qualified graduates and why 87% of ASU grads are recruited within 90 days of graduation. Learn to grow, learn to succeed, and learn to thrive at Arizona State University. To learn more about ASU online degrees, text STUDY to 35517. That's STUDY to 355.
A new study says more pregnant women are using marijuana to try to deal with morning sickness, nausea, heightened anxiety, and other discomforts. Mark Mayfield has more.
According to a research letter in Tuesday's Journal of the American Medical Association, younger women are most likely to use weed to treat common pregnancy side effects. The letter focuses on pregnant women in California from 2009 through 2016. Researchers report marijuana use among a sample of pregnant women in California rose from 4.2% in 2009 to just over 7% last year. Mark Mayfield, NBC News Radio.
A new shingles vaccine is coming out that's supposed to be more effective. The CDC says Shingrix, as it's called, is expected to spare most people over 50 from getting the painful rash. GlaxoSmithKline, the manufacturer, says the vaccine prevented shingles in 90% of people who were vaccinated. Health Update, Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News Radio.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Either you're with us or you're with the terrorists.
If you've got health care already, then you can keep your plan if you are satisfied with it.
Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States. Take it to the bank.
Together, we will make America great again.
We'll never surrender. Never surrender.
It's what you've been waiting for all day. Buck Sexton with America Now. Join the conversation. Call Buck toll-free at 844-900-BUCK. That's 844-900-2825. The future of talk radio. Buck Sexton.
Hey, welcome back. It is America Now with Buck Sexton, Bryan Suits filling in for Buck. My home base is KFI Radio in Los Angeles. And if you're out here for a bowl game or whatever, then I guess you probably wouldn't hear me saying this. But anyway, if you have a relative who's out here for a bowl game or whatever, tell them that the weather's nice or something, or if they can hear me on KFI. I really don't know why I brought it up. Luckily, though, for all of you, let's see, Georgia and Oklahoma, a lot of Sooners out here, a lot of Georgia for the Rose Bowl, for the first round of the Airfingers College Playoff, and then Michigan State, and my very own Washington State Cougars, the home of Edward R. Murrow and Keith Jackson and me, in the Holiday Bowl on a Friday night. So this is the bowl season, a lot of fun, a lot of tourism going on, and the weather is cooperating, like I say. So that's the news out here. I say this because I just watched a Twitter video of some dogs playing in Pennsylvania, where apparently there's some record snowfall. And don't get me wrong, I'm not from here. I grew up, actually I was born and raised in Honolulu, but I really grew up in the Seattle area, so I actually am aware of what happens to water when it gets too cold. So you have my sympathy. But also, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm a little jealous because we have not seen a lick of snow here. And last year, we had this record rainfall. We were riding the drought train because of the high priests of global warming that run this state. We were all being told that this is the new normal. And then Mother Nature came along and gave us a slightly above average rainfall. Not some record rainfall, but a slightly above average rainfall. And that eliminated the drought in about 2 months. Because as it turns out, drought in a desert is, in fact, a normal cyclic thing, but so is rainfall along the Pacific coast. So that happened. I'm seeing lake effect snow, which is just a different dog. I worked in Salt Lake City for a couple of years, and in Salt Lake City, we would get the snow that would start around 4 a.m. And I did a wacky morning show, and a pretty good show. I mean, way better than Salt Lake deserved. And we would start, as I'm driving in like at 4 a.m., the snow would start falling. And lake effect snow means that you have this heavy moisture-laden air, like in Buffalo. People know this in Buffalo. And you get these huge flakes, and it accumulates really, really quickly. And so in Salt Lake, I'd be going to work at 4 a.m. to do my wacky morning show, and the snow would start. By 7 a.m., there would be a foot of snow, easily a foot of snow plus. But they were so efficient, and I don't know how your town works. You know, New York City, Boston, Chicago, all those towns have no excuse to not deal with snow. But I will tell you what, Salt Lake City, those people, and you know what I mean by those people, the people that run that state, the people that founded that state, they get stuff done. Let me tell you this, there'd be 2 feet of snow by 8 a.m., 7 a.m., 1 foot, 8 a.m. there'd be 2 feet. They would have the roads plowed and bone dry by 9 a.m. There was no excuse to be more than 1 hour late for school. Snow day, wrong answer. Meanwhile, in Seattle, where the Democrats run the place, they felt like we were victims of the temperature, and they could never marshal the resources which were on hand to plow the streets. In fact, it cost one mayor his gig. This mayor by the name of Greg Nichols. Once a year in Seattle, once a frickin' year, it snows. And you see it coming days away. And there's no excuse for any mayor to not have his street team ready to go. Well, this guy didn't have it ready to go, and the city shut down for 3 days because Seattleites, no matter what you think, when you think Seattle, if you think plaid and wool hats and lumberjacks, no, that's not Seattle. That's actually where I'm from. That's the town of Port Angeles on the Olympic Peninsula where, we cut trees down and make stuff out of it. In Seattle, the town shuts down because nobody can drive in the snow. So they're bombing around in Teslas and Land Rovers, and they don't know how to drive a Land Rover. They don't know how to drive in four-wheel drive. And that's what happens when California defecates liberals, which it does periodically, and they go flying out. They do this spray migration where Californians will wind up in Seattle, and then maybe they'll wind up in San Antonio, which is an absolute nightmare for those of you in Texas. There was a period where California was dropping big loads of Californians in Atlanta, and I know they messed up Atlanta, or at least they tried to mess up Atlanta. And so when you take people from this state who have never seen snow in its natural habitat falling from the sky, and then you put them in your state, where I, by the way, I know it snows in Alabama. And I know it snows in Georgia, and I know it snows in Texas. I mean, I was in San Antonio when it did snow. I was at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, when it was bite-ass cold and it snowed. Californians don't see snow. They just don't see snow. And then they leave here, and they screw up your state, and that's just one way they do it. Well, we'll get to this. I was talking to one of Buck's producers today, and she said, for some reason, you people like it when I bag on California. So I said, you know what? If you're green-lighting me bagging on California, then you have the right guy. Because a lot of this is interesting. A lot of people are fleeing blue states. And wherever you are listening to America Now, you're going to want to hear about people fleeing New York, California, and Illinois, which those three states have something in common. All three, well, they have a bunch of things in common. All three are run by Democrats. All three are deeply in debt. I think by ratio, I believe Illinois is the one that's in the worst condition because they, you know that part where you're supposed to fund your retirement fund, where you're supposed to bring in your budget annually, and then you go ahead, the first thing you do is you fund your retirement fund. Illinois has been oops forgetting to do that. New York is really bad, but in sheer volume, no one is even close to California. The California retirement system, there's two of them. One of them is called CalPERS, and that's cops and firemen and, homeless counselors and illegal alien massagers. And what other state jobs do we have? Illegal alien psychologists, illegal alien Pilates instructors, all those careers that only California could come up with. The state hasn't funded their retirement fund, which is called CalPERS. It's the second largest on earth, only after the India National Railway. But that's in size. In pure monetary terms, the California Personnel Employment Retirement System is the biggest in the world. I mean, on its own, it's like the 19th largest economy in the world is this retirement fund, but only if it's funded. We have a separate one for teachers, right? So anyway, it hasn't been funded. So that's the second thing that we have in common. And the third thing is the state is hitting the wall. So New York, Illinois, and California have the largest outflow of citizens of any of the state. By the way, the California Retirement Fund could absorb Illinois and New York and not even burp. But it has not been funded. I mean, literally, when I give you this number, you're going to be blown away, and you're not going to believe me, but you can check the state comptroller because he's the guy who tracks this. State of California, 40 million people. The Democrat-run government thinks it's more important to pay the illegal alien Kale counselor and Pilates instructor than it is to fund their own retirement fund. So it's underfunded by the tune of $280 billion when last they counted. And that was, by the way, that's billion with a illion. That's billion, 280 billion. What's your state budget per year? You know what? We're 10 times that, underfunded in the retirement fund. And the problem with California is they forgot to build a moat. So people are able to leave. Because who do you think is going to be on the hook to pay that exorbitant fund when they have to fund that thing? Because there's this huge glob of state employees that are about to retire, courtesy of this idiot Governor Jerry Brown, his first time around. So when they retire, they don't retire to California. They go to Idaho. They go anywhere the money goes further. They drop in Wyoming. They drop in Utah, Idaho, whatever, anywhere they can screw up another state. But we have to fund it. But you know what? I'm not gonna. Because I'm fresh out of reasons to stay in California. Now that I can't write off state income tax, now that I happen to see this gigantic watermelon in the python coming closer to the python's rectum, I don't want to be there when that thing comes flying out. And I'll be on the hook. I don't want my daughter on the hook. So, yeah, the blue states that are so badly run they're missing something. And that is that money doesn't print itself. You need an economy in your state. You need people working in that economy. You need them to keep as much of their money as they can, or else they're going to go next door where you can keep your damn money. So California is a Ponzi scheme. If you want to hear about it, I will tell you more about it. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this. Corey Lewandowski is in booty-grabbing problems or trouble. We'll talk about this horrific homicide in New York. We'll get to that. And Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee throwing the R word around at the woman whose seat she took on a flight. And then this flight bound for Japan, if you can imagine this, you're on an overseas flight that's going to be 12, 13 hours, has to turn around and come back because they seated someone who had no business on that flight. I'll tell you about it right after this. It is Bryan filling in for Buck Sexton. The number 844-900-BUCK, 844-900-BUCK. Get on the phone to get on the air. 844-900-BUCK. We'll take your phone calls about stuff and junk. Bryan filling in for Buck right after this on America Now.
Message and data rates may apply.
If you're considering going back to school, ask yourself the following questions. Do you need the flexibility to take classes on your schedule? Do you have college credits you need transferred? Do you want to earn a quality degree from a world-renowned university? If you answered yes to any of these questions, Arizona State University is the perfect school for you. Arizona State University offers over 150 highly ranked degree programs 100% online. You'll learn the same degree as you would on campus from wherever you are on your schedule. Plus, ASU Online accepts most transfer credits. For information, text STUDY to 35517. Learn for yourself why the Wall Street Journal ranks ASU 5th in the nation for producing the best qualified graduates and why 87% of ASU grads are recruited within 90 days of graduation. Learn to grow, learn to succeed, and learn to thrive at Arizona State University. To learn more about ASU